Imagine South African television without Isidingo. Hard to picture, right? For over 2 decades, the show wasn't just another soap opera, it was a mirror held up to the nation. When it premiered in July 1998, it broke barriers, tackled taboo issues, and gave ordinary South Africans a reflection of their own struggles and triumphs. It was daring enough to stage the first interracial kiss on local TV, bold enough to portray a gay wedding just days after same-sex marriage became legal, and sensitive enough to bring the reality of HIV into primetime living rooms when much of society still whispered about it in shame. Isidingo was more than a show, it was a movement. But behind the scenes, things weren't always as steady as they looked on screen. The world of Horizon Deep was constantly shaken by high-profile cast exits, shocking tragedies, and creative disputes. These departures weren't just about actors moving on to greener pastures. They exposed the tensions between art and commerce, passion and paychecks, loyalty and ambition. And in the end, these very exits became part of the chain reaction that led to the cancellation of Isidingo in March 2020. So why did these actors leave? Were they pushed out? Did they walk away? Or were their exits written by fate itself? Let's dive into the stories of the stars who shaped Isidingo and how their departures changed not just the show, but South African television history. Take Michelle Boats, for example. From the very first episode, her character, Cherel de Villiers, was the villain audiences loved to hate. Scheming, manipulative, and deliciously ruthless, Cherel gave the show some of its sharpest edges. For nearly a decade, Michelle anchored Isidingo's central conflicts, and then in 2006, she left. Not quietly, not to fade into the background. She jumped ship to Binnelanders, a direct competitor airing in the exact same slot. Imagine the shock for loyal Isidingo fans, flipping channels and suddenly seeing Cherel on the other side. Her departure wasn't about creative burnout or tragedy. It was about competition. Rumors swirled that she felt undervalued after being snubbed at the SA Television Awards, even as the show swept trophies. And when Mnet offered a better deal, she took it. For Isidingo, it was like losing a cornerstone. For audiences, it was a betrayal. And yet, 4 years later, she returned, reminding us just how fragile loyalty can be in an industry where contracts, egos, and ratings often clash. Then came the heartbreak of Ashley Callie. If Cherel was the show's villainess, Leonie Lee Haynes was its tragic heroine.
Let me impress this upon you. I can unleash a set of journalists on you. They will dig and probe into your life as well as...
Ashley played her with warmth, intelligence, and quiet strength, earning a Best Actress award and the love of viewers across the nation. But in February 2008, everything changed.
Isidingo actress Ashley Callie has died. Callie was involved in a head-on collision with another vehicle in Linden, north of Johannesburg last weekend. 6 people were injured in the crash in which one of the vehicles overturned.
Instead of recasting, the writers chose to honor her by writing Lee's death into the storyline. One day she was there, the next gone forever. For viewers, it blurred the line between fiction and reality. It was a loss that couldn't be explained away with a contract dispute or a new role. It was fate, cruel and irreversible. And then, only months later, another blow. Lesego Motsepe, who had played Zeb Matabane since the show's beginning, was written out in a car crash storyline. At the time, fans thought it was just a plot twist, but the deeper truth made it devastating. She was living with HIV in real life, something she bravely revealed in 2011, years after leaving the show. Her character's journey had already been groundbreaking. She portrayed one of the first long-term HIV-positive characters on South African television. But Lesego's life mirrored art in heartbreaking ways. She later announced she had stopped taking her ARV, choosing alternative treatments instead. When she passed away in 2014, South Africa mourned, not just an actress, but a symbol of courage and honesty. Her departure from Isidingo was more than a script decision. It was the loss of a voice that had carried real-world weight. And then there was Don Mlangeni, the man behind Zeb Matabane. For 15 years, Zeb was the father figure, the steady rock of Horizon Deep. His family was at the heart of the show's community, but Don's exit was anything but quiet. Reports say he refused to say a bank's name in his lines unless he was paid extra, arguing that he wasn't just acting anymore, he was endorsing a brand for free. The producers disagreed. Conflict erupted, and in the end, he was fired. His dismissal highlighted just how much Isidingo was struggling financially by then. Sponsorships and product placements weren't just add-ons, they were survival strategies, and Don's stand against what he saw as exploitation became part of the wider story of the show's decline. For fans, it was another rupture, another reminder that the Horizon Deep they loved was being chipped away piece by piece. If we step back, we see a pattern. Some actors left because they were pulled away by bigger offers, like Michelle Boats. Some were taken by fate, like Ashley Callie and later Miss Motsepe. Others left in disputes over money and principles, like Don. Each departure chipped away at the emotional bond between viewers and the world of Isidingo. Characters weren't just disappearing, they were tearing holes in the storylines, leaving fans struggling to stay invested. By the late 2010s, ratings were slipping. In September 2018, the show still drew over 1.1 million viewers. By January 2020, that number had fallen to just over 780,000. Now, that might sound like a solid audience, but for SABC3, which was bleeding viewers and revenue, it wasn't enough. And when the public broadcaster is drowning in debt, even your best performing show isn't safe. That's why in November 2019, the axe fell. The official reason? Poor audience ratings, declining revenue, and a poor return on investment. In other words, Isidingo was no longer worth the cost. But ask fans and they'll tell you something different. They'll point to the cast departures, the constant reshuffling of beloved characters, the storylines that were forced to change overnight. They'll remember Ashley Callie, gone too soon. Miss Motsepe, taken too soon. Don, pushed out too soon. Michelle Boats, leaving for a rival. They'll say the instability behind the scenes bled into the stories on screen. And maybe they're right. Because when a soap opera loses its characters, it doesn't just lose actors, it loses its heartbeat. And yet, despite the pain, Isidingo's legacy lives on. It showed South Africans their own lives, their struggles, their loves, and their fears in ways no show had dared before. It reminded us that television could be more than escapism. It could be education. It could be activism. It could be a mirror. So, why did these actors leave Isidingo? The truth is, there isn't just one reason. Some left by choice, some by force, some by tragedy. Together, their exits tell the story of a show caught in the storm of ambition, competition, financial strain, and fate. And when the final credits rolled on March 12th, 2020, what ended wasn't just a television series, it was the closing of a chapter in South Africa's cultural history. Even now, years later, fans still talk about the possibility of a revival. Maybe Horizon Deep isn't gone forever. Maybe the mine shafts still echo with the voices of Zeb, Letti, Lee, and Cherel. But whether it returns or not, Isidingo will always be remembered as the show that dared, the show that pushed, and the show that, despite everything, made its mark.